Right, we continue our coverage on the build-up of tonight's State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. One of the key priority areas the President is expected to focus on is poor governance at local level. Despite the increase in clean audits for municipalities and the latest audit outcomes, the Auditor General has painted a bleak picture of local government. What can we expect from the President on this front? To answer that, I'm joined by Nyelane Oleni from Ndiso Consulting Group Revenue. A very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsroom Africa.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
The expectations are pretty high, especially looking at how service delivery has impacted ordinary day-to-day people who are basically just looking for their needs to be met. What can we expect? Because what we heard from the Auditor General paints a pretty bleak picture. What does the President need to say this evening as the locals are looking on to him?
Yeah, I think the issue of local government is one which has been brewing for some time. Yeah. And the issue of governance in terms of how municipalities are being run currently is one which is being called into question. The issue again is around, the amount of money that flows into local government, because those are some of the issues that drive local government forward. I give the facts that, 43% of the fiscus goes into the national, about 41% goes into the provinces, only about 8 to 10% goes into local government. So you can imagine from a fiscal point of view, the amount of resources that are available at local government to be able to attract the necessary skills, to create the necessary capability, is not at the level that it should be, as seeing that, juxtaposing it with the provincial as well as the national. So we need to look at galvanizing funding that can attract skills who will be able to drive the imperatives of local government, especially service delivery.
What we've heard over the past few weeks and really observed are the massive water challenges as you look at local government level, how people are frustrated with not being able to have access to clean drinking water. And that in itself speaks to a dire need for change, and residents will be looking to hear what the President has to say. And also looking at the impact of load shedding, how that has had a detrimental effect on business, on day-to-day lives, and of course shaping the economy of the country.
Absolutely. I think infrastructure is a very big topic. It's a very big issue. There are backlogs in terms of infrastructure rollout. But the important thing as well is that the planning of such infrastructure, to having a coherent planning and budgets that can orchestrate the implementation of water infrastructure, electricity infrastructure to local government, and even looking at renewables. So I think this is an area which the President ought to look at and be able to give a cue that local government will start receiving the kind of funding that it requires, especially from an infrastructure point of view. Water is a big issue. And I think, water, we look at it, as water coming out of the tap and negate, the planning that goes into that process. What we've seen in some of the areas, such as, the protest that was taking place in Phoenix and Durban, is a classical example of how planning went wrong, how financing went wrong, how the relevant, skills and technical capabilities were not available to be able to solve some of those problems. So those are the chronic issues around infrastructure delivery within local government that are required. And of course, energy shortages, or at least the load shedding, causing for some of the municipalities to start having a decline in their revenue, which is a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just yesterday, as I spoke to the Joburg Finance MMC, Dada Morero, about the city's finances, the city of Joburg's finances, City Power losing 1 billion rand a month, really showing to a desperate situation insofar as managing finances is concerned. And of course, scrutinizing the billing system and how money is coming in and coming out. That in itself speaks to a bit of discomfort and distrust as community members, look to the officials running the city of Johannesburg.
Look, the sustainability of municipalities is one that we must also address, or the President needs to at least look at addressing. And addressing it, from a point of view that, all of the people that are within local government, all of the different, stakeholders that play a role, such as the private sector, to be able to have, that space to drive, the imperatives. So what we're seeing with the likes of, the institutions, whether you have municipal-owned entities or whether the services are being implemented internally, internationally, there is generally a decline with regards to the service, the quality of service, and that goes into the type of investment that is being made into sustaining some of those services. And of course, the finances are not looking great, which is one of the things that, are causing municipalities to be scrambling for additional support and additional relations in terms of, going into the private sector to raise, funding. And of course, they need support from government to be able to put out those assets, because these are assets of government, these are assets of, the country, to be able to bring in at least the necessary resources, the necessary skills, the necessary financing to resuscitate some of those assets. And we talk about power stations, the likes of, municipalities who own power stations that have been mothballed, that would require to be demothballed and brought into service, but at least in a more sustainable and embracing the green technology aspects.
Politicians like Action SA leader Herman Mashaba are saying South Africans are far worse off today than they were 6 years ago. And Mashaba just really talking about the legacy of President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that his time in office is one of a country run down by rampant unemployment, corruption, load shedding and decaying infrastructure. As we listen to a statement like that, what sort of expectations now lie on the president, also considering the number of promises that have been made in previous State of the Nation addresses? So
I think, we'll hear a lot of voices, obviously being an election year.
Yes.
And it's fair that we hear the different voices, because that's the pulse of where some of the communities are, or at least the things that they are feeling. But the most important thing here is that we're left with about 6 years to 2030. We have a national development plan. And I think for this address, the president should also be going back to the National Development Plan in much more broader terms, because there are things that have been coined into the National Development Plan which must be achieved. And I think the report back from where the president should be, and taking into account, all of the voices that are voicing dissatisfaction with, how government has functioned. But where is the vision of the country? I also make the point that, our country is one of many plans. From local to provincial to national, there are multiple plans which are being put forward without alignment. So the National Development Plan should be that galvanizing and aligning plan for the country that permeates all the way down to the ground. So I think the issues that, may be raised, by various political parties, various, civic organizations, speak to the fact that, is this country running based on a vision, and what are those milestones that are being achieved based on the vision that has been put forward, or the plan that has been put forward to develop the country. We are known as one of the most unequal countries in the world. We are known as well as, one of the countries that, suffer high crime levels. And those are the aspects that, must be brought into the Sona to address the issues of how do we deal with the economy, how do you deal with the crime, how do you deal with service delivery, which impacts people on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in studio. For that preview ahead of the State of the Nation address this evening. Mielani Holeni from Ndiso Consulting Group, Revenue and Local Governance Expert, talking to us about some of the expectations and what the focus should be as the President takes to the podium this evening at 7 o'clock to address the nation. Now, still to come, a market